Let's take a look at how we can configure SNMP version 2 here. You can see our topology here at the top, and what we want to do is to configure SNMP monitoring only from the two SNMP agent devices, R2 and R3, in this case at 10.1.1.5 and 20.1.1.5. So first thing, let's create a standard IP access list for those devices. This is going to make sure that we're only permitting those two particular SNMP agents to communicate. So we'll go under global configuration mode, and we can say access-list. I'll call that list number 1. I'll use a permit statement, and I want to permit 10.1.1.5 first of all, and I will create another one of those statements for 20.1.1.5. So I'll do both of those. This step is optional, by the way, but it's a really good way to increase your security posture when you're using SNMP. So we're still under global configuration mode, and the next thing we want to say is SNMP-server to enable SNMP on this router. Now, if we look at our contextual help, you can see the many options that we have here. Since we're looking at SNMP version 2 in this case, remember that this particular version uses community strings just like version 1. And near the top of this contextual help output, we do see the keyword community. So let me break out of this output, and we can use the keyword community, and contextual help again is going to indicate that we can now set the community string to whatever we'd like. I'm just going to use a really simple one. I'll use Cisco, all lowercase. That's not an ideal community string, by the way, but I just wanted to keep it really simple for this example. If we look at contextual help again, you can see that now we have a couple of relevant options here that I want to point out. We see RO and RW. Those are going to be read-only access for RO, and RW will give full read-write permission. If we're using SNMP version 1, which doesn't support the inform command to make configuration changes, we might choose RO for read-only. Or if we want to restrict this particular SNMP manager for any reason, we might also use that. I'm going to choose the RW option here, and I'm going to give that both read and write access. If we look at help again, it indicates that we've narrowed down our remaining options. Now we can call out our ACL number that we've created. That's standard ACL for our two approved hosts, and that was ACL number 1. And after that, we can hit enter. Next, let's use the command SNMP-server followed by the keyword host, and this command is going to let us identify the IP address of the SNMP manager to which those traps are going to be sent. And you can see from our topology that is 50.1.1.5. If we look again at our contextual help, I want to point out that if we're using SNMP version 1, the only other things that would required, you can see at the top of the list, the community string. You see that it's prompting for that. That's one of our options. So if we were using version 1, remember that's used for both version 1 and 2, but with version 1, we could put in this community string and we would complete this configuration. Now, since we're using version 2, we won't do that. What I will choose is the informs keyword. Remember that version 2 added support for the inform request type. And that particular option will require the SNMP manager to acknowledge receipt of the trap messages by echoing the request back to the agent. So I'll use that keyword, and if I look at help again, you can see that now we need to specify the version that we're using. So I can say version, and we'll look at our help options. Really simple. 1, 2C, or 3. So we can see those options here. We have version 1, version 2C, or version 3. I'll use version 2, so I'll use that 2 keyword because we're configuring SNMP version 2C in this example. If we leave this out completely, then it's going to default to the regular SNMP version 1 traps. And now, if we look at our help, the only thing left is to configure our community string, which will be Cisco in all lowercase. If we use contextual help again, you can see the many different options here for which traps we want to accept. Now, by default, all traps are going to be sent. So if we want to narrow that down to anything specifically, we can look through this list and we can do that here. I'm going to leave this in place. In my case, I'm not going to identify any of these keywords, so I'll leave the default in place to accept all trap messages by just simply hitting enter. And that completes the configuration for SNMP version 2. It's really simple. You would, of course, want to repeat these steps on the other agent machines as well to make sure the community strings matched for communication, and you would want to do that on the SNMP Manager software as well. Now, configuring an SNMP Manager software, that's outside of the scope of this particular exam, but you'll want to be aware that the software would need to be configured with the same community string as well in order to have successful communication. So that's a look at how we can configure SNMP version 2C on a Cisco device.